What diseases were the biggest killers in the Civil War? Dysenteries were the biggest disease killers. What were some medical procedures that add to the medical problems of the times? They didn't really do that much. When they did, they would usually use the same tools they used on the person and would not clean them. So that's how some bacteria started. How did bacteria play a major role in the loss of soldiers? This one disease accounted for around 45,000 deaths in the Union Army and around. What were the most important medical advances throughout the war? There were 5 major medical advances that were found during the Civil War. The first one was life-saving amputation. The second one was the anesthesia inhaler. The third one was closing chest wounds. The fourth one was facial reconstruction. And the fifth one was ambulance to ER system. Penicillin was the first antibiotic. How was it discovered? It was discovered when Alexander Fleming saw it growing and decided to perform an experiment to see if it kills bacteria. The penicillin ended up killing the bacteria. Why was it important to the medical field? It was important to the medical field because it would kill bacteria and help people out. Did any other war help promote the discovery of this antibiotic? World War II helped promote the discovery of this antibiotic. How was it used? And was it overused? Penicillin is used to treat many different types of infection caused by bacteria. Penicillin can be overused and could possibly pose a threat to your health. What impact did it make on people? Penicillin destroyed whatever bacteria was harming people. There were different types of penicillin to treat different types of ailments.
What were other antibiotics that were discovered after it? After penicillin was discovered, there were many other antibiotics discovered later. Some examples would be polymyxin, erythromycin, and vancomycin. What bacteria did the antibiotic kill? Polymyxin killed Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Acinetobacter baumannii, Klebsiella pneumoniae. Erythromycin killed Streptococcus, Staphylococcus, and Haemophilus genera. Vancomycin killed Enterococcus.
When was hand hygiene become a common practice in the medical care system? In 1843, Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes advocated hand washing to prevent the spread of germs. Why is hand hygiene important in reducing the bacteria and virus infection? If you use antibacterial soap, then it will prevent the spread of bacteria and infection. Imagine how much stuff you touch in one day and how many germs you spread around. Washing your hands can reduce the amount of bacteria and germs you spread around.
Find an actual hand hygiene study and incorporate it into your movie. Objectives: to evaluate the impact of implementing a simple, user-friendly e-learning module on hand hygiene, compliance, and infection rates. Design: pre-intervention and post-intervention observational study. Participants: all neonates admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit over the study period were eligible for participation and were included in the analyses. A total of 3,422 patients were admitted over a 36-month span. Interventions: in the pre-intervention and post-intervention periods, all healthcare providers were trained on HH practices using an e-learning module. The principles of the 4 moments of HH and definition of baby space were incorporated using interactive tools. The intervention then extended into a long-term sustainability program, including the requirement of an annual recertification of the module and introduction of posters and screensavers throughout the NICU. Primary and secondary outcome measures. The primary outcome was hand hygiene compliance rates among healthcare providers in the 3 phases. The secondary outcome was healthcare-associated infection rates in the NICU. Results: hand hygiene compliance rates declined initially in Phase 1, then improved in Phase 3 with the addition of a long-term sustainability program. 76%, 67%, and 76% in Phases 1, 2, and 3 respectively. Infection rates showed an opposing but concomitant trend in the overall population as well as in infants less than 1,500 grams and were 4%, 6%, and 4%, and 11%, 21%, and 16% respectively during the 3 phases. Conclusions. Interventions to improve hand hygiene compliance are challenging to implement and sustain with the need for ongoing reinforcement and education.
Are there other times or situations when hand hygiene is important? Hand hygiene is important all the time, and especially after you use the bathroom. It is also important after getting your hands dirty, touching animals, and sneezing or coughing into your hands. Explain how antibiotics work in your body. Different antibiotics work differently on your body. Why are antibiotics so important in our lives today? Antibiotics are so important in our lives today because they help treat illness and they help prevent the spread of disease.
Identify 5 different antibiotics and their specific bacteria in which they cure. Amoxicillin is a type of antibiotic that treats streptococcus and staphylococcus. Oxacillin is an antibiotic that treats staphylococcus and U bacteria. Cefaclor is an antibiotic that treats streptococcus and staphylococcus. Azithromycin is an antibiotic that treats streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. Clindamycin is an antibiotic that treats anaerobic bacteria and Staphylococcus aureus.
Are there other precautions that we can take to prevent bacterial infections? Washing your hands correctly and thoroughly, staying up to date on vaccinations, and taking the right antibiotics are all ways that we can prevent bacterial infections.
There are some good bacteria. Some of these bacteria are probiotics, which help digest food, and there are some bacteria that are used in the making of dairy products and even in some medicines. Bacteria help clean up oil spills and help keep the environment healthy since they are decomposers and break down organic matter. Since these bacteria help keep the environment healthy, they are helping to keep you healthy. You can't survive without some of these good bacteria because they are used in medicine, which heals us when we are sick. You can only live in a good, clean, and healthy environment, and these good bacteria make sure of it by decomposing harmful substances. Good bacteria help us a lot in our daily lives. Antibiotic resistance occurs when an antibiotic has lost its ability to effectively control or kill bacteria growth. The bacteria become resistant and begin to multiply. We should all be concerned about antibiotic resistance because we all have to take an antibiotic at some point to control an illness. If the antibiotic stops doing its job, we could get sicker and possibly die. Bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics because when an antibiotic stops working, bacteria that can resist that antibiotic have a better chance of survival than those who are susceptible to that antibiotic. Susceptible bacteria are killed or inhibited by an antibiotic, resulting in a selective pressure for the survival of resistant strains of bacteria. It's very hard to prevent antibiotic resistance because to make the antibiotic stronger, you would have to add more stuff to it, which might change its function or make it too overpowering. We would still be affected by the antibiotic because it might not perform the function it needs to cure us. There are 2 ways that bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics. Number 1, a genetic mutation, or 2, by acquiring resistance from another bacterium. Mutations are rare, spontaneous changes of the bacteria's genetic material and are said to occur in about 1 to a million to 10 million cells. Bacteria can acquire antibiotic resistance from another bacteria cell. By undergoing a mating process called conjugation, bacteria can transfer genetic material, including genes encoding resistance to antibiotics from one bacterium to another. Antibacterial products have not been proven to stop the spread of infections better than products that do not contain antibacterial chemicals. There are some ways that you can stop the spread of infections, such as hand washing and cleaning shared items and surfaces. These products actually do add to the problem of antibiotic resistance. Some common antibacterial products are alcohols, chlorine, peroxides, aldehydes, triclosan, trichlocarbon, and benzalkonium chloride. There are a lot of bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. Some of these include Staphylococcus aureus, Streptococcus pneumoniae, Enterococcus faecium, and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. These bacteria are dangerous because they all cause an antibiotic to stop working, which would make us sicker and we could possibly die. These bacteria spread so readily because the antibiotic is not powerful enough to overpower them. It doesn't have all of the chemicals needed to prevent that bacteria from becoming resistant. There are many ways to prevent the spread of antibiotic resistance, such as staying up to date on your vaccinations, not using antibiotics that were prescribed for someone else, and discarding any antibiotics left over from a previous illness. If everybody does everything they're supposed to do, then antibiotic resistance shouldn't be a problem in the future. We are the cause of the problem because if we don't stay up to date on our vaccinations, if we use antibiotics that weren't prescribed for us, or use antibiotics that were left over from previous illnesses, then antibiotics will spread like wildfire. The problem can be solved by doing all of the things that I previously mentioned. Probiotics don't play a role in the treatment of antibiotic resistance because there are some bacteria that are resistant to probiotics and make them ineffective also.